Hello fellow vloggers, writers, and rhymos. Today is day 18 of NaNoWriMo, and this is Beatrice again, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my writing process. So do you guys realize that we are getting closer and closer to the end of the month? Like, NaNoWriMo 2014 is going to be over in less than 2 weeks, and for some reason I'm really happy about that. But on the other hand, I'm also thinking, oh gosh, I have to wait another year to endure this month again and to have the fun of doing it again. And I don't want it to end. Part of me does not want it to end. I'm getting closer and closer to 50k. Right now I'm at about 42,500 words, and today's word target is 45k, which I'm hoping I will get to before at least 10 p.m. tonight. I'm getting tired of staying up each and every night till like 1 a.m. and writing. Because I wake up like at 11:30 and I feel like most of the day has just gone by, and I feel like I'm lazing around too much. Though procrastination is the one thing that I do best, but I'm gonna try and change my schedule so that I start writing early in the morning. I'm gonna force myself to do that and do some other gets productive throughout the day rather than just sleep all the time. But apart from that, that's completely off topic, but today I'm going to talk about my writing process, and I've split it up into 4 sections of questions, a total of 20 questions I'm going to ask myself and answer to for you guys to know a little bit about that. Part 1. What's your story? Question number 1. Where do you get your inspiration from? I have talked about this quite a bit in my previous videos, and I am going to do another video tomorrow or the day after talking about my literary influences, so I'm not going to elaborate on this answer, but literally everything. From people I know, to stories and books that I read, to the news on the television, everything is inspiring. Question number 2. What genres do you tend to lean towards? Young adult and romance. Question number 3. What are the themes that you add to in a lot of your stories? Friendship. There's a lot of drama and romance involved in most of my stories. And there's one thing that I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, comedy. Comedy. There has to be a little bit of comedy, and more often than not, at least my main character is usually quite sarcastic. Question number 4. How do you pick the story that you want to write? I have this little box of ideas called the Imagination Haven, and you guys can't copy that name, but I actually call it the Imagination Haven because it is like a mix of all these ideas I've had ever since I was young, story ideas that I haven't written yet, and I put them all into this teeny tiny box in my head and on paper that I aim to write, and it ranges from horror to young adult to sci-fi and fantasy, and most of them will probably never get written the entirety of my lifetime because there's that many. But whenever I want a new story to work on, I always go into the Imagination Haven. Part 2. Brainstorming action. Question number 5. Do you outline? Yes, I do. Question number 6. Do you always follow your outline? No, I don't. There have been times when I have outlined and completely ignored the outline and kind of branched off and just wrote the story as it comes along, and that's been fine for me. The outline is usually just a really vague idea of how I want the story and the plot line to kind of come along, and I always leave enough space for for how I might want it to be written while I'm writing it, like new characters or additions to the plot, so I don't very strictly have like this outline that I'm like, yes, you should follow. It's very, very vague. Question number 7. What elements of the story do you spend a lot of time planning? The characters. Definitely the characters. Because the characters are the most essential part of the story, especially in mine, since most of them are young adult kind of stories. It is a lot of drama involved, so I spend a considerable amount of time planning the characters and their backstories, and also like how their flaws affect the story and kind of builds along the storyline. So the characters are definitely the one thing that I spend the most time planning. Number 8. What are the things that you need to work on when you brainstorm? The setting. I am horrible with the setting, describing the setting, because I know I planned the setting and where it should be, but when it comes to writing the story, I have a lot of difficulty writing it out because most of my stories take place in the States and I have never been there. And there's only so much you can really pick up from researching, like on Wikipedia, on how North Carolina's weather is or how San Francisco is like. But it's different when you've actually been there and tasted life in a particular city, and when you write it that way, there's much more flavor to the setting that you're trying to describe. So that's one thing that I really definitely need to work on. And I think one solution would actually be traveling to the States and visiting the places that I want to use. Part 3. Getting down to business. Number 9. How many drafts do you do? Growing up in literature class, English class, the teacher would always say that when you write a story, there are several steps and several drafts you have to do before you reach your final draft. Like at least 3 different drafts. I just do one. And I don't rewrite or majorly edit the first draft that I do, but that's another story, that's another question. I just do one draft and then I edit it a little bit for grammatical mistakes usually, and that's basically it. And question number 10. What literary devices do you employ? I use a lot of adjectives and complex sentences. Like, there are times when a whole paragraph is just one sentence. Like, I just go on and on and on, and I fill in a lot of adjectives and adverbs. Adverbs I use loads. I think that's bad, and I'm trying to stop. I use a lot of adverbs, and I just really try to make my story very descriptive. So yeah. Question 11. What is your writing style compared to like certain authors? Like, how similar is your writing style to certain renowned authors? I would say my writing style is similar to Meg Cabot and Sarah Dessen in terms of like the young adult genres. And some of my friends have told me that my writing style is also similar to J.K. Rowling, but I would never compare myself to the queen of fantasy and magic. But it is a compliment, so yeah. Question 12. How long does it take to get your story written and like completed? A lot of time, like sometimes even years. Question 13. Do you have a word count or word boundary that you don't want to pass when you start writing a story? Not really. I mean, I usually try to keep my stories beyond 40,000 words, so basically a novel. But I never have like a max amount, because I don't want to limit myself to rushing the story and like cramping it into like 100,000 words or something. I just write it, and when I'm editing it, I make sure that I take out any elements that aren't really necessary or that are just like filler chapters, so that the story is like relevant. So yeah, I don't really have like a word boundary that I set myself when I start writing. Part 4. The part that all writers dread. Question 14. Do you hate editing? I don't hate it, but I don't particularly like it either. Question 15. What do you find the most difficult in editing? It's just the whole process of reading through my work and identifying every single mistake I've made. Not only is it like, oh my word, I made these silly mistakes and I had not matched the character, this part, to the character later. How did he grow this much? Like, I don't show it. Like, identifying all those plot holes and mistakes is kind of... It is part of the learning process, but it's painful as a writer because I'm a perfectionist. And, I think that's the hardest part, and finally, like, editing all those details and trying to make it match so that it just doesn't jump from A to C, but it goes from A to B to C. That's the hardest part, and it takes a lot of time. Question number 16. How long does it take? A lot of time. I spend a lot of time editing my story, like, before it reaches the final stage of like perfection, and I don't rush it. I don't rush it at all. So yeah. Question number 17. Have you ever changed the storyline of your novel in a major way while editing it? Yes, I did for one of my stories. I wrote a story called I Promise, which is in its editing stage right now, and it was originally intended to be a romantic comedy between a guy and a girl who get set up on a blind date and are actually enemies. That was what it was originally meant to be. But rereading it, there's a lot more I noticed that can be added to the story to give it like more backbone, and I've completely started rewriting it and added a lot more of like a sisterhood kind of element between the two sisters in the story. And yeah, like there have been times that is the one time I have rewritten the story while editing it, and it's completely changed the plotline. And finally, part 5, polishing. Question number 18. How easy is this part? Not really. I mean, it's much easier than the editing, because the editing is done. All you have to do is reread it, polish up certain bits of the story which you can kind of improve on, which you might have missed in editing. So it's quite easy for me. It's like the final touch, but it's definitely also more difficult in the sense that I have to really make sure that I don't miss any details. So I have to be super attentive when I'm reading it. Question number 19. Do you share your work with others to get their opinions on this whole polishing process? Yes, I do. I often, before I like submit my story for like a competition, or if I'm trying to just get a story completely finished and not come back to it for rewriting or editing, I usually give it to a friend right after I finish editing it, or my mom, because she loves my stories, and they read it and they point out certain parts they think I could improve on and polish upon a little more, and that usually helps. I love sharing my stories with people, so yeah, I do that. And last but not least, question number 20. What comes next? What comes next is the feeling of accomplishment that your story and novel is completed, that you have written something amazing and brilliant, and that feeling, my friends, is amazing. Like, you can always come back to that novel and just read it and know that you wrote all of it and that it's in its best possible form. I love that feeling. And so far I've only got one book which I have that feeling for, but it's amazing. And throughout the whole writing process, after finishing the editing and writing and polishing, that's the best part, when you just know that you're done with the book. You can come back to it and read it whenever you want to and know that it's yours. Every little bit of it is yours. And yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. I had a lot of trouble recording this because something was wrong with my laptop. I think there's a virus in it, and it kept slowing down my camera. So it took me hours to get this recording done and edited probably as well. So I hope you guys liked it. If you want, this can be a tag. It's up to you. You guys can use the questions I came up with, and I'll put a copy of the questions down in the description box, and you can do a video of you yourself talking about your writing process, and I would love to watch that. Just let me know if you do by commenting, and don't forget to subscribe, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I hope you guys are having a great nano, and that your word counts are amazing, and you're happy with it, and yeah, happy writing, guys.